Thank you very much. Before that, thanks on the beautiful session that we just had. I have privilege of actually moderating a session with three very eminent people on it. Chittilappilly, Suja, Chandy, Praveen, Sridhar. What I'll do is I will introduce each of them as they speak. We've actually tried to look at a slight variation from the one which Sandip did, where I've requested the three speakers the panelists to actually speak for maybe about 5 to 7 minutes each. And then we will have a bit of a conversation among ourselves, followed by the Q&A. And I'm taking the freedom of making a slight change in the topic, which was technology pre versus post-COVID. Talking about post-COVID could probably be talking about 3-4 decades. So we said, let's look at pre versus along with COVID, or with COVID is what we would talk about, is what I had told the panel we should do. So let me just quickly introduce our first panelist. You're going to put up the panelists up? Yeah. So we will have, AC is not come on yet. Okay. Suja Chandy. Suja is actually known to many of those who are in this part of the world. She was the managing director of Nissan Digital India LLP, which was the Nissan Motor Corporation's first global innovation center, which is based out of Trivandrum, before which she worked with Invest India, the arm of the government of India, which really was attracting investments into India. She was on the board of the Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce. She's involved in mentoring future leaders, particularly women in technology, known as a mentor business leader. And she's worked very closely with global capability centers, both in terms of strategy and operations. Daisy has not joined. Okay, let me introduce Praveen. Mr. Praveen Sridhar is the head of pre-sales at Freshworks since 2019. He joined Freshworks in 2016 as a senior product consultant. For him, it's been great being with the one of the industry leading companies support side. He has managed steady growth in terms of knowledge, experience, and expertise. And he has been pivotal in building 3 stems of an organization. The streams, one is product, revenue, and customer relationship, which actually means he's practically running the whole organization in a way to talk of these 3 areas. So that's something which is critical. And he has over 13 years of experience in the industry area. The program had Daisy speak first, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to request Suja to start off with. And Suja, I think you have a small presentation. Nice to see you on the screen now. Which part of the world are you in now?
I'm currently in Madrid. I'm taking a sabbatical of sorts. And so greetings, hola everyone from Spain.
Good. Yeah, please go ahead with your presentation.
I had a small presentation, so I'm not sure if people, both on physically and virtually can actually see those slides. If the organizers can just tell me if that's up on the screen, that'll be great.
Yeah. Can somebody share her presentation? She sent it yesterday, I know.
Great. And I also need help moving. It's just 1 or 2 slides in 5 to 7 minutes. I'll just wrap up, give a context. First of all, thank you TiE Kerala for the invitation to participate in this great interesting discussion with such an eminent panel and moderator. I want to, the idea of technology, right? In my opinion, if you can just go to the first slide, the next slide, please. So just putting together some context of what's going on in the current situation, right? In my opinion, when you talk about technology, What has changed before, if you say pre-COVID to present times, is not really the technology itself. Of course, the technology is evolving, but what has changed is the greater willingness and eagerness to adopt it by both, the common man as well as organizations, right? While perhaps we can assume that the worst of COVID or COVID-19 is of the pandemic is behind us in terms of impact, there is still a lot of uncertainty as new variants pop up across the world. I was just reading yesterday about the one in South Africa now. But most countries are still not open completely. We still, they're trying to ease the travel restrictions that have been prevalent by creating these vaccinated travel lanes, air bubbles, green passports, you name it. But still, there's a lot of difficulties associated with free travel, right? And some of the global sectors, as you still know, are still in recovery, and it will take a few years to really set everything right, even though the glimmer of hope is that the global demand is starting to rise. Now, if you look at the global supply chains, you know that they were hit quite badly, and it was not just the pandemic, but a whole lot of other factors that contributed it to being badly hit. That is still being reset, right? And there's a lot of dependency, I feel, on technology, whether it is to anticipate or evaluate the risk, but also to still, while doing that, ensure it is highly competitive and in terms of pricing and delivery for customers. So whether you're looking at new business models, no sourcing models, you still at the end of the day think about the customer. Now, some of the things that have had a global impact when I talk about it, startups, and of course, I'm addressing a lot of the entrepreneurs right now, and you, as all of you know very well, a lot of the startups across the globe were hit, especially on the cash front, right? And we're battling for survival, along with a lot of other small and medium businesses. But over the last 1 year, if you look at it, this pandemic has also created a whole host of new opportunities, and it's created a sort of boom for startups in one way. In fact, in India alone, 38 was the number of unicorns that were created this year till date. And I was reading an article which said that 1,600 tech startups alone were kicked off in 2020. And 12 became unicorns in 2020. So that's a great figure, because India is now placed, I believe, third in terms of the number of unicorns. And if you look at where it is coming up, as you all know, especially IT, healthcare, mobility, you can see fintech, e-commerce, retail. These have all also become a magnet for investors, and you have, foreign investors looking keenly at India, which, also from an economic standpoint is starting to grow in terms of GDP as is slowly rising, and it's expected anywhere between 8 to 10% over the next year. And this is much better compared to China and some of the other countries, emerging markets, if you look at it. Now, while these are mostly, the global trends, if you look on the other side, there's been a lot of, consumer impact due to COVID, and we continue to do so, whether it's social distancing and sanitization. And here in Spain, masks are very much still mandatory, whether it's internal or even, external, and most people go by it. You see that, a lot of things are also changing. Now, if since I'm in Spain, I can give you a small example in how technology has played a role and what has changed. Now, Spain, in spite of being a very developed country, has still relied a lot on cash transactions. In fact, 46% of point of sale transactions were through cash. Now, before the pandemic, now with when the pandemic hit us, a lot of it from whether it was the hygiene factor or the fact that we were trying to avoid the direct contact and touch and feel, the digital payments started rising. In fact, over the last 1 year, year on year, within Spain, 18% of decline has been noticed on cash transactions, while the digital and mobile payments are fast rising. In fact, there's been a whole fleet of apps that have been, jointly also developed by the big banks. There's a consortium of 20 banks that developed an app called Bisum here in Spain, and which is widely used for transferring, payments, cash, and it is basically commission free. So, a lot of things are, and the interesting thing within banking, if you look at technology, is that number of ATMs are also declining, with 6 out of 10 Spaniards now preferring to use digital banking rather than physical banking. And, in India, no surprises, but digital transaction, as skyrocketed, and the numbers are at 25.5 billion was the number of real-time transactions that took place digitally, and making it the highest in the world. China was around 15 billion or so. And things like UPI, as actually, if you can go to the next slide while I talk about this, UPI e-wallet has also recorded a major increase, and UPI has on a monthly basis, the number of transactions has more than doubled, and it's around since 2020, and we are looking at around 3.5 billion transactions. So you're talking about big numbers, and it's not just in the banking space. You've seen it in telehealth. Mobile platforms like Practo have recorded amazing percentage of increase, with more doctors joining in. They have apparently around 25,000 doctors on it, and almost every hospital, whether it locally as well, has got a platform where people can have their consultation first. On the digital transformation, on the digital front, as you know, companies are embracing digital transformation, and more than 85% of organizations globally are expected to embrace a cloud-first strategy by 2025. This comes as no surprise, as currently around 30% of digital workload is deployed on cloud-native platforms. But this is, according to Gartner, going to go up to around 95%. Over the next few years, and developers are also looking at low-code platforms as well. And as you know, software as a service, subscription models, these are things that will continue to grow as well. And as you all know, we have been on remote work for the past 2 years, and we will continue to do so, although we are talking about hybrid and a mix of going back to office, and we will continue to do so, at least over the next 6 to 12 months is my feeling. But business leaders now will have to start thinking of strategies to incorporate, as part of their workforce strategy, cyber security strategies as well, because as more of us go on using technology and work remotely, that has become a concern. And what business leaders are looking at is also bulletproofing their infrastructure, technology infrastructure, and ensuring that there is a very strong data security measures in place. It's
Sudha, if you could just run through, it'll be good so that we don't.
Yeah. So I hope you can hear what I'm saying. GVR,
I said if you could just run through quickly.
Yeah. And so and going and most of these you already know. And then as you go to the, if you can just go to the last slide. I think going forward, one of the most main focuses in my opinion, no, one before that, there's one before that. Yeah, these are what I think would be some of the major trends coming up, which is one will be creation of greener ICT. Because as part of organizational strategy, most companies must look at also how to reduce their carbon emissions through, whether it's through less use of computers and servers and data centers. And I think that becomes an important point for, every company as it moves forward. And in the interest of time, I'm going to cut short because I see that, everybody is now back on the panel. So, and also, when you look at it, ICT can also contribute greatly to sustainability and circular economy, creating a circular economy. And I'm sure, we can talk about it later during the program. And last but not least, there's a lot of talk about great shuffle and return to workplace. And I think leaders will have to look through at work strategies where they can balance work-life balance, but also have their colleagues come back to work and work on, and so that the softer skills like team collaboration and innovation are also not entirely impacted as we go in through the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Suja. Actually, so this last slide that Suja had really captures what one is looking at in the period ahead. Like she said, with COVID, the with COVID period. I think we have Daisy's already joined. Can we have her on the screen? Yeah. Daisy Chittilappilly, as was introduced earlier, is president of Cisco India and SAARC region. She's been responsible for strategy, sales, operation, and investments to drive long-term growth in the area. Over 25 years of experience in the technology industry, of which 17 years has been leadership position in Cisco. And she's a very passionate person, empowering youth to join the technology space, does a lot of mentoring, strategic thinking, and look at the impact, increasing the impact of mentoring startups to innovate. Being with Cisco, I am definitely expecting something from her, which is going to open up our eyes to new areas, because they're the ones who, if you look at, the telepresence which came in years ago, today it's become part of our lives. It's in our rooms. So it'll be good. I know you probably have a few things to talk about, but it'll be good about what are the big innovations that have happened during this period. If you can briefly cover that also, it'll be good. But like I said earlier, 5 to 7 minutes would be great.
Thank you, Jivyar, and good evening to all of you. It's great to be here. A special thank you to TiEcon for hosting this event. We're, of course, at a turning point in India's transformation. I think the world's transformation, but certainly India's transformation. And it's absolutely the right time for us to come together and exchange views on how we see the future of India taking shape and technology's place in it. Jivyar talked about some of the things that Cisco has been proudly brought out into the technology space and the market. But I'm excited to share about how we're thinking about the new world. I think Suja called it the new normal post-COVID here at Cisco. So like all of you here, we've been closely observing the shifts in the market, especially regarding technology consumption. The last 2 years have demonstrated just how far technology can go in enabling and improving every single aspect of our lives. As a result, adoption has been pushed forward by several years, and McKinsey says that we will see in this decade in technology adoption what we had not seen in the previous 100 years. And it's not just technology that's evolving. What's more significant, perhaps, is a change in the mindset. Individuals, organizations, governments, all alike are seeing technology in a different light. And we're all able to envision the possibilities that digitization can bring to life for the average citizen, the average consumer, for the business, or for governments. So the challenge and perhaps the opportunity also is to identify ongoing tectonic shifts and the role that technology will play in empowering and accelerating these shifts. As we see it at Cisco, there are 5, and I see it personally as well. I'm watching these 5 significant trends that all of us need to prepare for. And Suja touched on hybrid work. The one that affects all of us daily is the work that all of us do. And we know that going forward, work in workplaces will never look the same again. The future of work is inarguably a hybrid. So work is not where you go, but it's what you do. And if you look at an E&Y survey, the most recent E&Y survey that came out, in India, 76% of Indian employees are saying that they want more flexibility around where they work. At Cisco, our collaboration platform has recorded the second highest number of meetings and participants in India after the US since April of 2020. And now, even though most of us have started going back to work, and the number of participants in the remote participants in the meeting is slightly lower than during the peak of the pandemic, the number of meetings has actually gone up several times more. So hybrid work definitely here to stay. So as this happens at scale, I think for all of us who run businesses, the recognition is that hybrid work goes beyond conferencing and video technologies. Great as telepresence is, it will extend to many other technologies, and hybrid work has to be highly secure, highly resilient, and highly agile. And that's where the thinking is at this point in time. Of course, it needs rethink in the capabilities that organizations have edge to cloud. It requires us to rethink networks, collaboration, cloud, all pieces of technology infrastructure that we are all using on a daily basis. Every interaction has to be productive, has to engage everyone, regardless of where they're sitting. The second critical stakeholder for any business and for young businesses that make up a lot of TiE's membership is customers, of course. And customer experience has always been paramount, but going forward, customer experience will make or break companies. And how brands make you feel rather than just the price tag or the legacy will be core to the decisions that customers make in the choice of brands. So in order to develop customer experience as a competitive edge, there are three key pivots that businesses and organizations need to consider. First is, of course, there's need to go digital and replace physical touch points with digital platforms. And India's appetite for digital is growing steadily. Suja talked about the 100 million digital transactions per day with a value of 5 trillion rupees. Which is what we are currently transacting at. And if that is a proxy for how people are going online, then businesses certainly need to keep pace with this digital population. Next, there will be technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and analytics that will be necessary to offer personalized and bespoke experiences to ensure elevated convenience and also make customers feel special and seen. And lastly, there is this element of trust that all businesses need to build with customers by investing in privacy and security infrastructure. It's becoming increasingly evident that in the digital age, the safety of individuals and businesses must be grounded in cybersecurity. And the number of hacks that India has seen in the last 12 months is indicative of paying attention to this particular space. Of course, all of this means that connectivity will become as essential to everything we do as electricity. And the network is the foundation on which the digital world is built and will continue to be built. And with faster digital connections as the need of the hour, we have tremendous innovation happening with 5G around the corner in India, IoT technologies at the edge, transforming and creating great capabilities and impact to businesses. There is the ability to merge the potential of many of these technologies to unlock a new wave of economic activity. I don't need to mention to this audience in particular the power that internet has in making sure that we build a more inclusive conversation, the power that it has to bring essential citizen services like healthcare, education, and banking to the population, not to mention the ability now to distribute jobs, high-paying jobs and qualified jobs and economic activity across the length and breadth of the country. I think I will for me, this is the most exciting promise of technology, the singular power to make a difference where it's needed the most. And as we work to build a better world, the biggest test of our ability to wield technology for good will be sustainability. And it's becoming a critical measure of success for businesses. It's not just a CSR mandate anymore. It is increasingly, as countries sign up to CSR, to ESG goals, and businesses sign up to ESG goals, sustainability will become a mainstream conversation. And it's not just about the environment, it's about crafting policies and taking actions that consider positive and negative impacts on every technology. And if you are using the power of technology to power your businesses, then that is also a necessary conversation to be had. I think at Cisco, of course, we have declared our net zero initiative, which is all about reducing scope emissions, and we have timelines around it. I would deeply encourage businesses as you look to build technology portfolios and technology-enabled innovation for the future to consider sustainability at the core of everything you do. And lastly, but not the least, purpose is a beacon for growth is another consideration that young businesses and old businesses alike have to consider. The necessity, therefore, for organizations to create long-term value by anchoring to purpose, ensuring that this is not just a CSR conversation, it's not a fire and forget moment, but a focus on all stakeholders, even after the crisis, and tracking progress for businesses and for their purpose. I want to pause there, GVR, and hand it back to you, please.
Thank you, Daisy. Thank you for those points and for giving us an insight the way you look at things. And I have some specific questions which I'll come to as we go on further. Praveen, can we hear your views on the pre and the along with COVID? Because I think Freshworks is one of the organizations which really has had some major milestones during this period. Correct? Be good for you to talk about that, please.
Thank you so much, Divya. So, can you hear me?
We
Am I
can.
loud and clear?
We can. We can.
Perfect. So yeah, the best example is this, right? We are willing, we are living in a world where we also have a 3D version of it, and we also start living this 2D version of it, where it's all Zoom. We have been living in Zoom, and it's actually creating a fatigue. So to start off with, on the pre and during pandemic technological advancements, right? I think there is a pattern. This is nothing new about it, right? Let's take this example of 1939 to 1945. You see, if you're going to take a step back and see, right, there were so many advancements at that time, right? Let it be the digital computers coming in, the propulsion technology which came in, right, for mass traveling, which actually was an offshoot of a lot of these Airbuses which came in, right? Let it be the nuclear technology, where we wanted to use nuclear technology not for weapons, but also for technology and energy, right? There were so many advancements in 1939 and 1945, which was the time when this World War II was happening, right? The next latest example would be 2008, when we all know that there was so much of economic crisis which was happening, right? And that's exactly the place when there was so much of adoption on cloud which happened, right? The SaaS, which Suja was talking about. Let it be the adoption of the entire cloud platform as such. It all started in 2008, if I remember right, during our crisis, right? So what it actually tells us, it is very similar patterns, right? When there is a crisis, it actually fosters a lot of innovation. That's exactly what is happening now. We call, from our technology world, we call this as a tech acceleration, right? Which is technology acceleration, which is happening, right? Satya Nadella from Microsoft was talking about this during pandemic. There is so much of technology acceleration which is happening in all the industries, right? And if I need to take McKinsey numbers, global average is almost 7 years of accelerated growth is what we are seeing. Meaning things which should have been possible, should have been live in 2027 is actually now been live, right? We have been living our life in 2027, if you ask me. And in Asia Pacific and India, if you want to put these numbers and see, it's almost 10 plus years of actual acceleration what we are seeing on the technology front, right? So this is exactly what is happening. We were ready, and we were getting ready for this acceleration to happen. Pandemic was just a catalyst which speeded up this process, right? This is nothing new. This pattern is actually following. And if you take India and Asia Pacific for that matter, there was one survey which was taken in 2018 of May, where almost very similar like people were involved in understanding how much of digitization we will be okay with, right? Almost 26% of the working crowd and people who can decide on the technology, let it be the CTOs, let it be the CXOs, said that, yes, we are ready, almost 26%. That increased in December 2019, if I remember right, to 34%. And in July 2020, it was almost 56%, right? Meaning there was only 4 drivers for this, right? I'm just taking 2 more minutes and I'm going to hand it back to you. We know that we are running short of time. So there is just 4 drivers for this, right? One, it was a digital speed. We were growing in a neck-breaking speed, right? People were reallocating their resources to technology advancements and R&D so that they would be able to link with this new normalcy. That's first one, right? Second, they were ready to reinvent, right? The best example is almost 45% of companies which saw a decline in their revenue, almost 25% or more of decline in their revenue, were okay to put their 100% into R&D and technology advancements, right? So it was not only quick decisions what our companies, what our decision makers were taking, it was also bold decisions. If pandemic wouldn't have happened, I don't think people would have taken such a bold decision in such a quick time, right? So it was, people were ready to reinvent. That was one basic thing which happened. And as Daisy was mentioning, right, there was so much of decision making which has been given to AI and ML, right? The artificial intelligence, machine learning actually helps us a lot when it comes to decision making, and that was one a driver, if you ask me, why this acceleration of technology is happening. And the fourth one, which again, both of our panelists mentioned, we are gone customer centric. We have started listening to our customers more. We want to understand what our customers are saying. Best example is, if I am going to take my pet for walking, if I'm going to exercise, if I'm going to drive, I was okay listening to music till 2019, right? 2020, 2021, I don't know from where it came in, but now people are showing interest listening to podcasts. People are showing interest to listening to interviews, right? And that's exactly an app called as Clubhouse was born, right? We see so many speakers, even from here, talking in Clubhouse as well, right? We wouldn't have even imagined about this app where it is only audio-centric app coming in. People are ready to listen to customers, and that's exactly what is happening, right? So it is becoming more conducive. It is becoming more of synergy which is happening, where people are ready to listen to customer-centric requirements. From now on, any company, any startup which is going to come in, right? It is not going to be that I'm going to build this product, I'm going to sell it to you. No, right? It's going to be pretty simple. You have this problem and I have a solution. This is how the conversation is going to start building, right? People don't want to purchase product which is not going to be of any use for them, right? The best example is, we would have gone and shared our Netflix licenses with like 4 or 5 people, but now we are ready to even purchase not only Netflix, let it be any other OTTs, right? Including Netflix, we almost have 3 to 4 licenses which we have, right? So that is exactly what is going to happen. We are ready to spend on things which is going to solve our problems. And so with that, I'm going to finally say this, right? Yeah. Crisis will always foster innovation coming in, and we are in the right phase where there is going to be more of these startups which is going to listen to customers, which is going to be success coming in, because that's exactly what we did with Freshworks. And there's so many other milestones which Freshworks achieved, one being listed in NASDAQ as well this year.
Good.
And over to
thanks. Not only being listed with really, really good valuation numbers on that, okay? Which is something which is a big motivation for a lot of people who would be listening to this program. Now, I have a couple of questions which I'm going to go with, but in the meantime, those who are here physically present, and we have about 200 people physically present, another 1,000, 200, 1,300 plus who are registered on the virtual platform. So those who are on the virtual platform, please put your questions into the chat. For others, please write it down and somebody will bring it to me and I will read that out. I'm just going to start off with some, I don't want to say the rapid fire kind of thing, but quick questions to the panelists. And on the technology side, is there any technology which you see which has become redundant at this point of time, which we were using in the past, which is not going to be any more relevant? I'm not going to use it anymore. Okay, is there any technology like that? And what are the 2 or 3 new things that have happened during this last 18 months plus? I'll start with Daisy because she is the one who's in the heart of a lot of things that are happening. I know a lot of companies will not want what they have to become irrelevant, but it'd be good if you can just think about it and tell me about that.
Yeah, so GVR, I think, you know, the technology trends, you're absolutely right. The shelf life of technologies, the number of technologies and the shelf life of technology is getting shorter and shorter. And actually, Accenture did a very interesting study and a very interesting graph, which is a better visual representation of it, but I don't have that handy here to share. But the shelf life of technology is definitely shrinking. So I don't think there is any one particular thing that I can call out, but this is the amount of money. I mean, at Cisco, you know, we're spending north of almost $6 billion in R&D to make sure that we are either up-leveling our own platforms for the next generation of customer and user, or acquiring new capabilities that our customers want. To Praveen's point that he was making, listening very intently to consumers and you know, up-leveling that conversation. I can give you a very simple example. So when we started pre-pandemic WebEx, you know, I know we are on Zoom, but let me just pitch for pre-pandemic WebEx is a pure, yes, talk from anyone to anywhere on any device, smoothly connects, no problems, high definition video, it all works, fantastic. Over the last 24 months of the pandemic, as we've all gone behind a screen, WebEx has evolved to become an engagement platform. So it can today, using technologies like artificial intelligence, say whether Daisy is on this call, but really is she interested in this conversation? Is she reacting properly? I mean, is she absorbing what Praveen and Suja and GVR is saying, or is she really bored and off, right? There are also ways to bring polling into this conversation. There's a way to do breakouts in this conversation. There's a way to do emoticons, right? So the expression in a room, you could maybe make some noise, maybe across the virtual environment in a large audience, you can't make noise, but you still want to express yourself. So emoticons have come in. The ability to do events has come into the platform. So capabilities, I would say it's an evolution, GVR, and every technology has an evolution. Some features, it goes up and down, but there's a massive evolution in everything we do. We had wireless is another technology that's very easy to understand from a Cisco lens. It used to be access points. You come in contact with the closest access point. That access point just, connects you and gives you access to the internet. That used to be the easiest way to explain wireless technology. Today, our wireless technology is counting how many people are in a particular square feet of space. What is the distance between both of them? That then talks to the WebEx board, which is inside a conference room. If you have a limit saying the conference room should only have 2 people because it's intended for 4, but in COVID environment should only have 2, it can alert WPR, workplace people, it can alert you, it can alert workplace people, it can alert management that this is not the way it's supposed to be. So a lot of evolution. And to Praveen's point, every crisis is an opportunity, and every crisis is sparks innovation. Yes, there's a lot of hardship, but sparks innovation. So just a little bit of nuance around how technology is evolving, rather than, and yes, shelf lives are short. I agree with you, shelf lives are short, so I don't want to predict what will die tomorrow.
Great. Suja, what's your call on that?
Well, I agree with Daisy, right? In terms of, and as I said in the beginning, it's not technology per se that has changed. It's the evolution, right? Like as we go along every single day, you're coming up with more innovative, technology by listening to your customer. So as Praveen had pointed out, the voice of customer becomes very important. A few years back, I was content listening to my playlist on, iPod. Then, that changed, that evolved. I became, okay, I have my own playlist I create, it became little more better as the iPhone evolved. And right now, I don't even want to scroll down on my playlist and pick the songs I like. I actually ask, Alexa to say, Alexa, when I'm in the kitchen doing something, I say, Alexa, play my favorite playlist or play my favorite songs. And Alexa actually picks up and plays exactly the kind of songs I want to hear. Now that's called evolution, and that's what technology is going, right? Who knows? The next thing is, it can even predict, like I don't even have to say, Alexa, stop, play it, play the next song. I don't quite like it, because it's going to just figure out what's in my mind probably, and, sense my mood and play it. So, it's very difficult to say, because everything, if you look at it, the daily, devices that we've been using in our daily lives has evolved, right? Even if you look at apps like, Instagram, when it first came out, I mean, it's again part of that technology evolution, right? You just had pictures, you pointed out. Now you can actually create, people market their products. They run successful entrepreneurs, run successful businesses using platforms like Instagram, because you can completely advertise your product and really cater to your specific market without even spending lots and lots of advertising dollars by working with agencies and things like that. So a lot of evolution is going to happen. And I think as we move along, it becomes more and more important to listen to the customer, and also and understand, because and sometimes using technologies like AI, we should be able to predict what even I don't even know what I want, but when I get it, I know that I was missing it, right? And that's what's going to happen, and it's going to continue to evolve. And I think I'm looking forward to that. Although I still have to say, I miss some of the old, it's nostalgia when you see your old camera lying somewhere there, or old rotary phone. I mean, there's a nostalgic element to it, but I will still take the price of the freedom of convenience over any of these obsolete technologies.
Praveen?
I completely go with what Daisy and Suja said, right? There are not going to be any technology is going to die down, or maybe they might become obsolete, but things which is going to evolve. If you ask me, one very important thing which is going to evolve from a consumer standpoint is going to be assisted buying, right? So that is one thing which is going to crack the entire arena, if you ask me, right? Where if I'm going to get into a brick and mortar store, right, I would definitely have a bots assistants coming into place. More than human interaction, there is going to be so many bots assistants coming into place, understanding, listening to whatever I was doing, right? Let's take this example of what Suja was saying, right? Now Alexa knows about what her favorite playlist is, right? With whatever she's going to, let's say, browse on Amazon or Flipkart or Walmart, we will be able to know what type of preferences she has with accessories, right? So this is exactly what AI is all about, right? When it's going to club that with the brick and mortar style, we are not saying that people are going to get away from this. We are not going to say that human touch is going to be removed. Human touch is going to be there, but with that, there is going to be much more contextual collaboration, which is going to happen, right? For me, if I am going to be a decathlon, the salespeople there are being called as runners. If I'm going to get into decathlon, and if I am going to be a runner there, and if there is going to be a consumer coming in, I would know what their interest is all about. And only if they are going to opt in saying that I want assistance, we will have this predictive assistance coming in with so much of context on what their likes and dislikes are all about, right? So going forward, I think that is one thing which is going to break the arena, where you're going to have more of this assisted buying coming into place.
One of the things which ran through all your responses was listening to customer. And this is a big change that's happened, okay? Earlier I was talking to men, and while talking, we asked ourselves, so he says, customers are not going to go far from where they are, okay? And, they'll go to the nearest store. They're not going to go all the way to a far-off place. They're not going to go into a crowded place. So clearly, there has been a big change that, in a way, even though we've been talking about it for long, customer is king. You're listening to the customer. Today, really what you're talking about is you're listening and you're acting based on what the customer says. Now, when you listen and act based on customer says, do you think, and again, I'll start with Daisy, do you think that a lot of the innovation which was happening earlier was what was predicting what the customer would want? Would that go to the background? Because earlier, when you talked about all the innovations which Cisco have done and other companies have done, or Nissan was planning or was doing in the electric vehicle area, those were not what customers asked for. And when you look at what Steve Jobs said, nobody asked for an iPhone, okay? Nobody asked for most of the products which came out, but they said that this is what do you think this listening to the customer in a manner that we are doing today will kill innovation in some form? Or would that be that companies would have two different streams, one listening to the customer and two looking at what the customer would require in the future?
Yeah, Jiver, I think, see, pure research, and if you're talking about pure research, right, it's never going to become unfashionable. What happens, we find a lot of ideas in labs which never make it to mainstream because of the fact that somehow we can't create the connection between that great innovation or that great idea to a felt need or an implied need or a need that can be made felt or can be created. And I think what listening to customers can do is bridge this gap. So it will bridge this gap. And my sense is, rather than killing innovation or killing pure research or killing good ideas, it will actually fast track the ability to adopt a lot of that innovation into the mainstream in a way that is more meaningful for the majority of a consumer, rather than in a very niche space, which if it's very niche, then it eventually leads to inability, that sustainability, the commercial sustainability or viability of that idea becomes a problem. So I think the listening to customers is really about taking a technology or taking a great idea and connecting it very quickly and productionizing it or productizing it, or creating a service out of it very quickly that customers can then easily consume. That's what this is about. And also, while we do, and the whole purpose is, there is this demand shaping that companies like ours, which listen to customers and have been listening to customers very well for many years, there's a lot of demand shaping that we will continue to do. So I think it just shortens the time to market, in my view. It doesn't kill innovation at all.
Suja?
Yes, in fact, as Daisy was pointing out, a lot of ideas are generated organically, right? But how many of them can, at the end of the day, be successful commercially, right? That's also an important consideration for most of the organizations. In fact, when I was at Invest India, I was working with the principal scientific advisor to the government of India to create this platform for entrepreneurs who had these, fledgling innovations or creative ideas, but to really how to help them commercialize it in the market. So it was basically a platform to help commercialize it. And basically what we did was we created this technology platform, and we had people connecting with researchers or entrepreneurs, helping them to connect with the market, right? So you always, you at the end of the day, probably 10 to 15% or maybe a little more might be the ones that actually are successful, right? And for any product, whether, however innovative it needs to be, for it to be sustainable, it needs to fit a certain need for the customer. Like it has to, I need to use it. Otherwise it's going to go obsolete. And however wonderful it looks and feels and comes out with great ideas, it's going to, I'm going to put it back in the back shelf, right? I'm not going to be able to use it. So for instance, did I know back in the day when I was purchasing a car that I can, really create a car virtually exactly to the specifications that I want, customize it to the specific look, color, feel, the rims, the tire, everything, to the leather, the color of the leather within, 10, 15 years ago or 10 years ago, I would not have dreamt of it, right? I could probably choose a few things, then go to the dealer and then ask him if it is available. Technology has completely changed that. I can actually create my whole make and build the car to my specification. And then maybe only the last human touch point is maybe if I want to go and have a test drive the car, and, or the car will come to me, as most of the dealers, abroad, they will bring the car to you. So you don't even have to go to but the point is that at the end of the day, these were ideas, innovative ideas, things have changed, but really underlying it was the companies, the organization anticipated a need, a usage that probably I as a customer didn't even know about it. But at the end of the day, when I use it, I really clearly value it, right? So at any amount, in any product, at the end of the day, like we have been saying again and again, the voice of the customer is very important, because somewhere it's going to give you that important link between how you're going to create the product that is going to be eventually successful in the market and continue to be so for a very long time.
Praveen, your thoughts on this?
So I would definitely go with both of them, right? This is a twin engine model, right? So one, there has to be a successful R&D, let's say, team for every company, which is going to come up with something new, which is going to be predictive, right? Which a customer or a consumer might not even think of, right? And that's exactly the classic example. In healthcare, there is so many good advancements in tech, like in technology and in vaccines coming in, or else we wouldn't have even got a vaccine so quickly, right? mRNA is one of the technology which came in, which is how Moderna virus was born, Moderna vaccine was born, right? So we would not be able to listen to consumers when it comes to healthcare. So it all really depends on the industry as well. Hyper delivery or hyper local delivery of your goods, right? It was not what a consumer would have even thought about, right? But now if I'm going to get my pizza in 2 minutes, or let's say in 5 minutes maximum, right? I'm going to be happy about it, right? So listening to a customer is vital, which is going to actually give a lot of inputs to this R&D teams. And it is also going to help new technologies, which is going to come in, right? So it's a twin engine model. So I don't think there is going to be, it's going to be a right balance. I don't think one is going to kill another.
This is a question from Benny in the audience. He asks, biometric technology was stopped during the pandemic. and newer methods of facial recognition attendance systems got evolved. Then the second part of it is, while the whole world embraced Zoom, a Chinese product, no Indian technology came close to it. I don't know whether this is a comment or he wants a response on it, but I don't know whether you know that there was something not very far from here, which actually went through a total process of evaluation, and the government of India decided to support that in a big way, a video conferencing product out of Chittilappilly. Okay, and that's something which definitely has done well. But the response to, one of the things I noticed with the facial recognition thing is the costs are so high for those cameras. So where you could put multiple, biometric scanners, today you really can't do that. So you need to limit the places where you're going to have the access control. Is there going to be some revolutionary change there, where the cost of those cameras will come down, Daisy?
So Javier, it's a volume conversation, right? It's a manufacturing, always with technology, when in its first generation, it always tends to be expensive. And then as it gets democratized and as volumes build, and we've seen this with electronics ever since, we've all been acquainted with it. Continue to get more and more capability at the same price or far lesser price. You can see mobile phones, you can see televisions, you can see computers. I mean, you can look at even communication technology. So I think biometrics, yes, so cameras, surveillance cameras, which are really high-end cameras, are expensive. But as this becomes a more adopted technology, prices will come down. That's how this industry works, and that's how we should look at this industry to work as well. So
we have about 8 more minutes. Is there anything, Daisy, which you would like to ask the other panelists from what they said? And same with Suja and with Praveen.
Well, actually, no, I just think I would congratulate Praveen on a very fantastic, setting the bar for, to the point that, to setting the bar for the SaaS industry out of India. I think looking forward to becoming the next $1 trillion industry, as CNN said. I think comment rather that, and because we are talking at TiE, that the amount of innovation out of India is not to be underestimated. And Freshworks is a great example. We're churning 1 unicorn a week at this point in time in India. It's nothing to be laughed at. What that puts pressure on, we've always been the IT capital of the world, but we definitely need to become the digital capital of the world, because the amount of the requirement for digital skills just in India is going to be 9x by 2025. And I think if we have to continue to keep that epithet of digital capital of the world, then we should figure out how we are preparing. And all of us in this virtual room have a role to play in that. And Javier, to your point, I would have actually asked that question of not so much of which technology is going to die, but which job is going to die, right? Because then you'll have a list of answers, and no industry is sacred. There's no sacred cow in the list of industries. So I think we have a responsibility as an industry, and I look forward to the continued conversation in forums like this and with folks like yourself, Suja and Praveen, as we all maneuver through this conversation in this new world.
Good. Praveen and then Suja. I mean, you can say thanks for the good words, and then we go on to the next one.
First of all, there is so much of, these are good words from a lot of people, and we have been receiving this. So thank you so much I think I would take this opportunity to thank almost everybody who has been congratulating us on whatever we have achieved. And like our CEO says, G says, pressure is always a privilege. So we are, once, that was the day 0, if you ask me, once we went live with NASDAQ, right? And from there on, we have started working from scratch. Because we have another target, this target is done. So there is so much of things which we need to do, and there's so much of work which has to be done. And we had our CEO coming here immediately after our NASDAQ listing, not to congratulate, not to party, but to set the expectations right on what exactly we got to do from now on for another, let's say, 10 years, right? So that's the route what we're taking. So thank you so much for that. No questions as such, but what I want to understand from all the eminent panelists whom we have here is what is going to be that one factor which is going to help us move from an on-prem solution, if possible, to a cloud solution? Is there any one factor that is going to definitely, because one factor which will not allow on like people to move to a cloud might be security, right? But is there any factor which is going to actually help us in moving from on-prem to maybe cloud? Daisy?
I can answer, Praveen. I mean, we are all privileged, because we're so gotten used to this virtual world. We think this is the norm in the country. But the fact is 50% of India today is still not connected to the internet. And when you look at that number on a 1.3 and growing billion population, it's very fundamental. So we have a way of gravitating towards cool, but it's very fun. This is very fundamental and foundational. One level below that is electricity. We like to talk about electricity as it's a given because we've had it for over 100 years. But in many of, we are very closely associated with the Digital India program of the Government of India. Your CEO makes a great deal about being able to operate from rural places. When we try to partner with the Government of India to extend connectivity into rural places in India, we find the necessity to power many of our infrastructure, which should work in a very good data center of solar, as an example. So, the infrastructure paucity, I'm just giving this as a very basic example that everybody understands. So this data security, etc., if you ask me, is a much later consideration. We still have many foundational layers while we celebrate, while we celebrate everything at the top, and we have many foundational layers and talent, right? If you truly need to become digital, you also, so this whole gap in infrastructure, basic infrastructure, and potential gap in talent is what will hold us back to do anything great in the digital world.
Suja?
Yes, and in my one of the slides, I had kind of mentioned greener ICT, right? Now, on-prem data center servers, as you know, account for, as Daisy pointed out, the electricity usage, energy usage. And ICT is, as of now, I think accounts around for 2% of our carbon emissions. So how do we reduce this, right? And, I was reading somewhere in a publication which said that a child who's born today, when she or he reaches her teens, electricity usage will go up by 20% and especially 1/3 of it will come from data centers. So, when we are talking about climate sustainability and a green earth for for our future generations, I think these are important, fundamental and important considerations to have. And really all organizations must really have a closer look at this. And this is something that is very worrying, right? Because ICT can be also contribute to sustainability and a circular economy and all of those things.
If a great point, because anyone who's looking at funding an organization or anyone who's looking at listing is talking of ESG. What are we doing there? And now that's become another line of business and people looking at what do we do there, etc. We are running out of time. There was one question. It's a long question, but I think the question was, how is hardware going to be impacted with the digital transformation that is there? I would say that hardware does play a major part in things that are happening, and the support on hardware, you will see, will continue the way it has been over the last 1.5 years, where you have what they would call a touchless service kind of a thing, which happens. But very clearly, you're going to see those changes happening. One thing is very clear, the period before COVID and the period during COVID, which we will continue for some more time, is going to be completely different. And like was mentioned, the customer is going to be most important. You need to listen to the customer. The other one is talent. And you need to be responsible to society in terms of the amount of power you consume, the kind of governance methodologies you do. So everything, there's a big change that is happening. Thank you very much, Tai. I had this privilege of having such an eminent group of panelists here, and I'm sure they've contributed tremendously to this conference. Let's give them a big hand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks, and look forward to meeting all of you in Kerala sometime soon.
Sure, JVR.
Hope to see you all, and nice connecting with all three of you virtually. And congratulations, Praveen. We are all proud, when an Indian company startup gets listed on NASDAQ. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Have a good week.
Thanks a lot, everyone.